Mother-in-law declared, "Your brat from your first marriage doesn't deserve a trip to the sea. Quickly change the booking to their names." I made one call, and in the morning, waking up, I saw a barrage of messages and 15 missed calls from my mother-in-law. And before we continue, write in the comments from which country you're watching the video, and also check if you're subscribed to the channel, as I share interesting life stories with you every day. Okay, let's enjoy the story. Sarah leaned back in her kitchen chair, smiling contentedly at her laptop screen. Before her stretched photos of an azure coastline, pristine white sand, and a cozy hotel overlooking the sea. The family vacation she dreamed of for so long was finally becoming a reality. 3 weeks of bliss, sun, and quiet, far from the gray everyday routine and, most importantly, from Sarah, shuddered. She tried to push away the unpleasant thoughts. This was a vacation. Time for the family. For her. For Tommy. "Mom, what are you looking at?" Little Tommy, with his mop of unruly blonde hair, peeked over her shoulder. His eyes lit up when he saw the bright pictures. "The sea! Are we going to the sea?" Sarah pulled her son close and hugged him tightly. "Yes, sunshine, we're all going to the sea together. You, me, and Dad." Tommy clapped his hands. He'd been dreaming of seeing the sea for so long, and Sarah knew how important this trip was for him. She needed it too. Too much tension had built up lately. Way too much. From Eleanor. That evening, when Brian got home from work, Sarah greeted him with dinner and the joyful news. "Honey, I booked a trip to the sea for 3 weeks, right during Tommy's school break." Brian, tired and a bit distant, didn't catch on at first. "A trip? Where?" "To the sea. To Turkey. I found a great all-inclusive hotel." "Imagine, we'll lounge on the beach all day. Swim. Sunbathe." Brian gave a weak smile. "That's great, sure. But are you positive I can get the time off? I already talked to your boss." Sarah winked slyly. "He said he'd let you go. No problem." Brian sighed in relief. He always avoided conflicts, and the idea of arguing with his boss clearly didn't appeal to him. Well, if that's the case, then yeah, awesome idea. We all need a break and to bond as a family. Sarah felt a sting of hurt. Didn't he see for himself how much they needed this vacation? Didn't he feel how they were drifting apart? But she tried not to show it. Right now, keeping things positive was key. Tommy, overhearing his parents, ran up and jumped onto Brian's neck. "Dad, are we really going to the sea? We'll build sandcastles? We'll swim?" Brian hugged his son and ruffled his hair. "Of course we are, buddy. We'll do it all." At that moment, the doorbell rang. Sarah felt an unpleasant tightness in her chest. She knew who it was. Eleanor, Sarah's mother-in-law, entered the apartment, scanning everything with a critical eye. She wore an elegant dress, a pearl necklace around her neck, and carried a large bag of groceries. "I decided to drop by," she announced in a tone that brooked no argument, "and I brought some treats for tea." She set the bag on the table and started unpacking pastries, candies, and a jar of expensive tea. "You all seem so excited," she noted, narrowing her eyes. "What's going on?" Brian, as always eager to please his mother, jumped in. "Oh, Sarah booked a trip to the sea. We want to vacation as a family." Eleanor's face changed instantly. Her friendly smile vanished, replaced by a cold glint in her eyes. "To the sea? That's nice, of course. But is now really the right time for such trips? You have so much to do." "Mom, come on. Why start this?" Brian tried to object. "We haven't had a break in ages." "Oh, I'm not against a vacation," Eleanor drawled. "Just do it sensibly." Dinner started normally enough. Tommy, buzzing with excitement about the trip, chattered about building sandcastles and swimming in the sea. Brian smiled, nodding along, though his eyes showed some nervousness. Eleanor, as usual, presided at the head of the table, eyeing everyone critically. Sarah tried to ignore her, focusing on Tommy, but the tension thickened with every minute. The first shot came disguised as an innocent question. "Sarah, dear, are you taking Lisa and my little granddaughter along?" Eleanor said it so sweetly that chills ran down Sarah's spine. Sarah, keeping her cool, replied, "No, Eleanor, this is our family trip. I wanted just the 3 of us to spend time together." "The 3 of you?" Eleanor's voice turned steely. Isn't Lisa family? Is she less than Tommy? Or do you think she doesn't deserve the sea? Tommy, sensing trouble, went quiet and stared at his mom. Brian shifted awkwardly in his chair, avoiding Sarah's gaze. "Eleanor, please don't start," Sarah whispered quietly. "We've already decided. This is a gift for Tommy." He's been waiting so long. A gift for Tommy. And what about Lisa and her little girl? Don't they need gifts? Eleanor pressed on. You only think about your son, not others. Mom, Lisa's having a great time at the cottage. Brian tried to interject, but his mother cut him off. Be quiet, Brian, you don't get it at all. Your wife is doing this to spite me. Sarah felt a wave of anger rising inside. She barely held back from yelling at her mother-in-law. Instead, she took a deep breath and said, Eleanor, I don't want to fight. Let's just have a peaceful dinner. But Eleanor wasn't stopping. Peaceful dinner when you're offending my daughter and granddaughter? No way, dear. I won't let you act like this. She turned to Brian. Brian, why are you silent? Say something to her. Don't you care what she's doing? Brian, caught in the middle as always, looked guiltily at Sarah, then at his mom, and muttered, Mom, why are you like this? Sarah just wanted to make Tommy happy. Happy for Tommy, unhappy for Lisa. You're blind, Brian. Can't you see your wife is turning you against me? Sarah felt her patience snap. She stood up from the table. I can't listen to this anymore, she said, trying to stay calm, but her voice trembled with rage. I'm leaving. She walked out of the kitchen, leaving Brian and Eleanor alone. Tommy, scared by the fight, ran after her. In the living room, Tommy hugged her legs and cried, Mom, don't go. I don't want you to fight. Sarah knelt down and hugged him. It's okay, Tommy. I'm not going anywhere. I just need a moment alone. She took Tommy to his room and put him to bed. Then she returned to the kitchen. Eleanor and Brian were still at the table. Her mother-in-law looked at her triumphantly, while Brian hung his head like a guilty schoolboy. Well, calm down? Eleanor asked snidely. Now, do you understand you have to respect your husband's mother? Sarah didn't reply. She went to the table, picked up the sea tickets, and studied them carefully. So, you've decided to take Lisa after all? Eleanor asked, hopefully. Sarah looked up at her mother-in-law. There was no fear or anger in her eyes, just cold determination. No, Eleanor, she said calmly. I'm not taking Lisa. Then what are you going to do? Eleanor tensed. Sarah smiled. I'll think about it, she said, and left the kitchen. Sarah, leaving Brian and Eleanor in shock and fury, spent the night at her parents' house. In the morning, gathering her courage, she picked up the phone. Her fingers trembled slightly as she dialed the travel agency. Good morning. This is Sarah. I'm calling about the tour booked under the last name Thompson, she said, trying to sound as confident as possible. After a few minutes on hold, the operator's voice came through. Yes, Sarah, I see your tour. Everything's in order. It's fully in your name, and all rights for changes or cancellations belong to you alone. How can I help? Sarah's heart pounded wildly. She took a deep breath. I'd like to cancel the tour. Please refund the money to the card it was paid from. No problem, Sarah. For confirmation, I'll need. Sarah patiently provided all the info. At the end, when the operator confirmed the cancellation and refund, she felt the weight lift a bit. But this was just the start. She didn't rush to share the news with Brian and Eleanor. Let them live in their illusion of the upcoming vacation for now. Sarah had a different plan, far more important. Over the next few days, she dove into silent preparations. She knew she'd need support, so she turned to her parents first. They were stunned by what happened, but seeing the determination in their daughter's eyes, they offered full backing. At the same time, she secretly started looking for a small apartment in another part of the city. She wanted a fresh start, away from her mother-in-law's influence, where Tommy could grow up peacefully. Brian and Eleanor lived in anticipation of the trip. Eleanor was already planning how she and Lisa would enjoy the sea, what excursions they'd take. Brian seemed lost, but obediently followed his mother's every directive. He even tried to talk to Sarah about neutral things a few times, but she replied shortly and dryly, avoiding any hint of reconciliation. The day of the flight arrived. Brian had been rushing around the apartment since morning, packing last-minute things. Eleanor sat in an armchair, fixing her hair in the mirror. Lisa, dressed in a new sundress, eagerly waited to head to the airport. Brian peeked into Sarah and Tommy's room several times. "Why so glum, you two?" he asked, faking cheer. "We'll be back soon, with gifts for you." Tommy stared silently at his dad, and Sarah replied, "Don't worry, we'll find things to do." At the appointed time, Brian, Eleanor, and Lisa left the apartment. Eleanor shot Sarah a contemptuous look. "Sit here and envy us while we tan and swim." The door slammed shut. Sarah exhaled. Now it was her turn to act. An hour later, when Brian, Eleanor, and Lisa should have been in line for check-in, the doorbell rang. Brian, out of breath, stood on the threshold. "Sarah, what the hell?" he stammered. "The agency says our tour is canceled." Eleanor's eyes burned with rage. She shoved her son aside and stepped forward. "What have you done, you wretch?" she screamed, grabbing Sarah by the shoulders. "You ruined our vacation!" Sarah, staying calm, pulled away. "I didn't ruin anything, Eleanor," she said evenly. "I just canceled the tour. The money's back on my card. You. Eleanor choked with fury. "You did this on purpose. You wanted revenge." "I wanted to protect my son," Sarah said firmly. "And myself." Brian stood thunderstruck. He couldn't believe it. "Sarah, why?" he whispered. "Why do this to us?" "I can't live like this anymore, Brian," Sarah replied, looking him straight in the eyes. "I can't take your mother's constant meddling, her manipulations and humiliations. I can't watch you let her destroy our family." "But Mom just wants what's best," Brian tried to argue. "She wants to control everything, Brian," Sarah exclaimed. "She wants you as her puppet, and I won't let my son grow up in that environment." Eleanor's scream could have deafened anyone. Her face, usually masked in politeness, twisted in rage. Brian, pale, stood silently nearby, glancing from his mother to Sarah. You destroyed everything," Eleanor gasped, jabbing a finger at Sarah. "You wrecked our vacation, on purpose." Sarah watched them calmly, like a performance. No more fear or doubt in her. All decisions made, all bridges burned. "I destroyed nothing," she replied steadily. "I protected my son." "Protected?" Eleanor shrieked. "From what? A loving grandmother? A well-deserved vacation? You're just jealous we wanted to take, Lisa." "It's not about Lisa," Sarah said, staring into her mother-in-law's eyes. "It's that you constantly interfere in our lives. You try to control everything, from dinner menus to how to raise Tommy. And you, Brian?" She turned to her husband. "You let her do it." Brian lowered his head. He knew Sarah was right. He'd always feared contradicting his mother, always put her opinion above his wife's. And now the result. The family shattered. I just wanted everyone happy," he mumbled, eyes down. "Happy?" Sarah scoffed. "Happy at my expense and Tommy's? No, Brian, I won't allow it anymore. I'm a mother, not a servant, and I'll protect my child." Eleanor tried to object, but Sarah raised her hand, stopping her. "It's over, Eleanor. I'm leaving. And Tommy's coming with me." "You have no right," her mother-in-law roared. "I've already decided," Sarah said calmly, "and all the papers are in order." She turned to Brian. "I'm filing for divorce." She went to Tommy, who'd been watching silently the whole time. "Pack your things, kiddo," she told him. "We're leaving." Tommy dashed to his room, and Sarah started gathering her things. Eleanor kept screaming and threatening, but Sarah ignored her. She felt a wave of liberation building inside. Brian tried to stop her, grabbing her arm. "Don't go, Sarah. Let's talk this out. Let's fix it." "Too late, Brian," Sarah said, freeing her arm. "Too much has happened. I don't believe it can be fixed." Minutes later, Sarah and Tommy left the apartment. Brian tried to stop them, begging them to stay. But Sarah was unyielding. She knew this was the only way. Her parents waited at the door. They silently hugged her and Tommy, showing their support. Despair swam in Brian's eyes. He wanted to say something, to stop her, but words stuck in his throat. He knew he was to blame for it all. "Are we going to the sea, Mom?" Tommy asked hopefully, looking up at Sarah. "Yes, sunshine," she smiled. "We're going to the sea. A new life awaits us." They left the apartment, leaving Brian and Eleanor alone. A heavy silence hung in the air. Soon after Sarah left, Brian got a court summons for divorce and property division. He was confused and crushed. Eleanor tried to console him, insisting Sarah would regret it and come back. But Brian knew she wouldn't. Sarah was gone for good. He was lost to her forever. Eleanor kept controlling him, meddling in his life and giving advice. Brian, as before, couldn't stand up to her. He remained trapped in his mother's grip, lonely and miserable. Meanwhile, Sarah, Tommy, and her parents reached the sea. They rented a small house with a terrace buried in greenery. Tommy was thrilled with the sea and beach. He splashed in the water all day, built sand castles, and collected shells. Sarah watched him and rejoiced. She knew she'd made the right choice. She'd protected her son from the toxic atmosphere and given him a chance to grow happy and free. She got a job at the local school, teaching English. She loved working with kids, sharing her knowledge and experience. She felt needed and useful. Her parents supported her in everything. They helped with Tommy, gave advice, and were just there. Sarah felt safe and surrounded by love. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Sarah and Tommy sat on the terrace sipping tea. Tommy smiled, recounting his beach adventures. "Mom, what if they come?" he asked suddenly, a bit worried. Sarah hugged her son gently. "They know where we are," she said. "But if they find out, it's too late. We'll live here by the sea and be happy." She gazed at the horizon, the endless blue sea. She knew challenges lay ahead, but she was ready. She had a goal: protect her son and build him a happy life. And she'd do anything to achieve it. Months passed. Sarah and Tommy settled into their new place. They made new friends, formed new habits. Tommy started at the local school, adapted quickly, and became one of the top students. Sarah got the official court ruling on the divorce and full custody of Tommy. She sighed in relief. Now she could live and raise her son peacefully, without fearing interference from her ex-family. One day, Brian called. He sounded crushed and lost. "Sarah, I want to see Tommy," he said, voice shaking. Sarah paused. "I'll think about it," she replied, "but right now he's better here with us." She hung up and reflected. She understood Brian was suffering too, but she couldn't let him back into their lives and disrupt their peace again. She decided she'd allow Brian to see Tommy, but only under her supervision and in a neutral spot. She wanted Tommy to know his father, but not fall under Eleanor's influence again. Sarah knew she had more work ahead on herself and her relationship with Brian, but she was sure she'd handle it. She had her love for her son, her parents' support, and faith in herself. That was enough to overcome any hardship. She looked at Tommy, playing happily on the beach. He was so joyful and carefree, and for his happiness, she'd do anything. She approached him, hugged him, and kissed his forehead. "I love you, kiddo," she whispered. "I love you too, Mom," Tommy replied, snuggling close. In that moment, Sarah felt like the happiest woman alive. Years had passed since Sarah and Tommy had settled into their new life by the sea. What began as a desperate escape had blossomed into a haven of peace and growth. Sarah had risen through the ranks at the local school, becoming the head of the English department, inspiring young minds with her passion for literature and language. Tommy, now a teenager, had transformed from the shy boy who once clung to her legs into a confident young man excelling in school, captaining the soccer team, and even volunteering at a marine conservation center. Their small house on the terrace had become a home filled with laughter, seashell collections, and the salty breeze that carried whispers of freedom. Sarah dated occasionally, but her heart remained guarded, focused on Tommy's happiness and her own hard-won independence. She often sat on the beach at sunset, reflecting on the past, grateful for the strength that had carried her through. One crisp autumn morning, as the waves crashed rhythmically against the shore, a familiar figure appeared on the horizon. Brian stood at the edge of their driveway, looking older, wearier, but with a spark of determination in his eyes that Sarah hadn't seen in years. He had called ahead this time, respecting her boundaries, asking for a chance to visit Tommy and, perhaps, to talk. Tommy, now 14, greeted his father with a mix of caution and curiosity. "Dad, what are you doing here?" he asked, his voice deeper than Brian remembered. Sarah watched from the doorway, her arms crossed, a whirlwind of emotions stirring inside her: anger, pity, and a faint echo of the love they once shared. Brian stayed for the weekend, joining them for walks on the beach and awkward dinners where old wounds surfaced like hidden rocks in the tide. He spoke of his life back home, the emptiness of the apartment without them, the endless cycle of work, and Eleanor's unyielding grip. "She's gotten worse, Sarah," he confessed one evening as they sat on the terrace, Tommy asleep inside. "After you left, she doubled down, controlling every decision, every friendship. I tried to stand up to her, but I was weak. I see that now." Sarah listened, her heart softening but not yielding. "You chose her over us, Brian, time and again. Why should I believe you've changed?" The tension built like a gathering storm, their voices rising with the wind. Brian's eyes filled with tears. "Because I lost everything that mattered. You, Tommy, my family. I've been in therapy, Sarah. I've set boundaries with Mom, but it's not enough. I need to prove it." The climax came the next day when Eleanor, uninvited and furious, showed up at their door. She had tracked Brian down, her face a mask of indignation. "What is this? You're crawling back to her? After all I've done for you?" she spat, glaring at Sarah. Tommy stepped forward protectively, but Brian, for the first time, placed himself between his mother and his family. "No, Mom. This ends now," he said, his voice steady despite the tremor in his hands. "You've poisoned my life long enough. I love you, but I won't let you destroy what's left of it. If you can't respect Sarah and Tommy, then you can't be part of mine." Eleanor's rage erupted in a torrent of accusations, calling Sarah a homewrecker and Brian a fool. The argument escalated, voices echoing across the beach, drawing neighbors' curious glances. Sarah watched in stunned silence as Brian held his ground, refusing to back down, even as Eleanor threatened to disown him. In a final, heart-wrenching moment, Eleanor stormed off, vowing never to speak to him again, but Brian didn't chase her. Instead, he turned to Sarah, broken yet resolute. "I'm done being her puppet. I want to build a life here, with you and Tommy if you'll have me." In the days that followed, the air cleared like after a thunderstorm. Brian moved to the seaside town, starting fresh with a job at a local marina, proving his commitment through actions, not words. He attended family counseling with Sarah and Tommy, rebuilding trust brick by brick. Slowly, the wounds healed. Tommy flourished under the guidance of both parents, his laughter ringing freer than ever. Sarah, cautious at first, found herself falling in love again, not with the old Brian, but with this new man who had fought for them. They remarried on the beach at sunset, with the sea as their witness, vowing to protect their family from any storm. As the years unfolded, their home became a beacon of resilience. Eleanor, isolated by her own bitterness, eventually reached out in her twilight years, humbled and seeking forgiveness. But by then, Sarah and Brian had forged an unbreakable bond, teaching Tommy the power of boundaries and self-respect. In the end, what began as a fractured family rose from the ashes into something stronger, a testament to the courage to change, the strength to let go, and the enduring magic of second chances. And as they watched the waves roll in together, they knew happiness wasn't given. It was earned one brave step at a time. All right, thanks for listening.